severe weather warnings across Queensland, flash flooding through central regions, rivers running at near record levels, and now another developing tropical system tracking towards the Gulf. That's what we're dealing with right now across eastern Australia. If you are in central Queensland this morning, you already know. The last 48 hours have been relentless. Tropical cyclone Kochi came ashore and dumped an absolute load of rain across the interior. We're talking river levels that haven't been seen in over a century in some catchments. The flooding around Claremont and Emerald has been nothing short of devastating. Let me put this in perspective for you. In Claremont, there's a piano mounted on a pole marking the 1913 flood level. That's about 10 metres above the normal creek bed. Yesterday, the water came within 30 to 40 centimetres of that piano. We're talking floodwaters that very nearly match the worst on record. If you've been through floods before, you understand what that means for the communities affected. Now, the good news, the system has weakened considerably. Ex-tropical cyclone Kochi is now tracking northwest towards the Gulf of Carpentaria, and that means the heaviest rainfall has passed for central Queensland. Rivers around Claremont and Emerald are starting to drop. The worst is over for these areas. But here's where it gets complicated. Right now, if you are along the Capricornia coastline around Rockhampton and Gladstone, you are still copping showers and thunderstorms streaming in from the Coral Sea. The Gladstone radar is currently down, so we're relying on the Rockhampton radar, which isn't ideal. But satellite imagery this morning shows some pretty intense convection offshore, and that is tracking inland. What does this mean practically? Flash flooding remains a possibility through this afternoon around the Rockhampton area. The bulk of the heavy rain has eased compared to yesterday and the day before, but there's still enough moisture coming ashore to cause problems in low-lying areas. Looking at the forecast models, we're expecting steady rainfall through this morning along the central Queensland coast. This should ease back through the afternoon hours. Tomorrow follows a similar pattern. Drier conditions in the morning, then showers and thunderstorms building again in the afternoon. That is the general rhythm we are expecting for the next couple of days. Morning reprieve, afternoon activity. The Bureau of Meteorology still has flood warnings current for multiple catchments. If you are anywhere near affected waterways, stay well clear. These rivers are still running hard even if levels are dropping. Now, I need to talk to those of you in northwestern Queensland. This is important. Ex-tropical cyclone Kochi isn't done yet. By this weekend, the remnants of this system will be sitting in the far northwestern corner of Queensland, right near the Gulf of Carpentaria. And here is the concern. There is still a significant amount of water sitting across the landscape up there. Roads have been absolutely trashed. Jenny Line Creek is running at some of the highest levels I've seen. From Thursday onwards, shower and thunderstorm activity builds again across northwestern Queensland. Friday and Saturday could see isolated heavy falls, particularly in the far northwestern corner. If this moisture connects up with the remnant low pressure system, we could be looking at significant rainfall in the upstream areas of the Flinders River and the Norman River. Here, my message to anyone running stock in northwestern Queensland, consider moving them to higher ground sooner rather than later. This is an aggressive forecast, I'll acknowledge that. We're re-looking into the longer range, and tropical forecasts are inherently unpredictable, but you don't want to be caught on the back foot if another 100 millimetres falls into these catchments. That is all it would take to reignite serious flooding concerns across the region. The road network up there is already in terrible shape. Don T, put yourself in a position where you can move. Shifting focus now to the southeast because there's another developing situation that needs attention. Southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, you've been watching the skies and wondering when your turn comes. Right now, Brisbane sitting under cloud cover, humid conditions but not much rain to speak of. That changes this weekend. The models are showing potential for severe thunderstorm activity across southeast Queensland from Saturday into Sunday. A trough system will interact with all this tropical moisture that's been streaming down from the north. And when those ingredients come together, we often see elevated thunderstorm activity. What are we talking about? Damaging wind gusts. Large hail is possible, heavy rainfall leading to localised flash flooding. The usual severe thunderstorm concerns for this time of year. Keep an eye on the Bureau's warnings as we get closer to the weekend. Northern New South Wales, your situation is more complex and frankly more uncertain. There's a low pressure system forecast to develop in the Tasman Sea, and the models are struggling to agree on exactly where this tracks. The GFS has been quite keen on significant rainfall for the northeastern corner of New South Wales. The European model suggests something different. The Access model has its own ideas. What we can say is this: Somewhere along the New South Wales coastline, there is potential for 200 to 300 millimetres of rainfall between the 16th and the 22nd of January. The problem is we genuinely don't know exactly where that is going to fall. Could be the northeast near the Queensland border. Could be the central coast. Could be further south towards Sydney. This isn't an east coast low type situation at this stage. But if this low pressure system rides up against the coast and taps into the warm East Australian current, the rainfall could be locally significant. Thursday and Friday are when we might start seeing the first effects around the Sydney area. I'll be watching this closely over the coming days. As the models come into better agreement, we'll have a clearer picture of who needs to prepare. Speaking of the tropics, there is a developing area of interest out in the Pacific. Tropical low 14U is currently sitting offshore from New Caledonia. You can actually see it on satellite imagery this morning. The circulation is exposed because wind shear has absolutely ravaged this system overnight. It's lost most of its thunderstorm activity, and what remains is really just the lower level swirl. Now, this isn't a healthy tropical system right now, but as it tracks towards New Caledonia and Vanuatu, there is potential for it to redevelop. We could be talking about a tropical cyclone forming near New Caledonia by Friday or Saturday. The good news for Queensland, this system poses no threat to the coastline. It's heading out into the graveyard and eventually down towards New Zealand. Cross it off your worry list. But keep this in mind. Between the 20th and the 25th of January, we'll be monitoring the Coral Sea for potential tropical development. The monsoon trough is expected to strengthen, and when that happens, the conditions become more favourable for tropical lower cyclone formation. If something develops closer to the Queensland coast, that could translate to another tropical cyclone crossing the coast by late January or early February. Right now, there is nothing concrete on that front. The models are inconsistent about intensity, location and timing. But it's worth being aware that we're not done with the tropical season by a long shot. Finally, let S head over to Western Australia. There is potential for a tropical low to develop in the next 24 hours well offshore from the WA coastline and tracking southwest. No threat whatsoever to the West Australian coast. If a tropical cyclone does form, it'll be brief and short-lived, similar to what we saw a few days ago. More interesting is what happens around the 20th of January. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kochi, after doing their thing in the Gulf of Carpentaria, may swing out into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf and then potentially into the Timor Sea. There's a brief window where development could occur to the north or northeast of the Kimberley coastline. The chances are waning because this system is going to have significant land interaction, but it is worth monitoring. For those in Broome, Port Hedland or Karratha, the likelihood of any impacts from this system is very low. So where does this leave us? Central Queensland, the worst is passing, rivers dropping, stay clear of floodwaters and be patient with the road network. It's going to take time to assess and repair the damage. Looking further ahead, the strengthening monsoon trough creates potential for tropical low or cyclone development in the Coral Sea between the 20th and 25th of January. Right now, forecast models are inconsistent on timing, location and intensity. The Gulf of Carpentaria low is likely to dominate, which means the Coral Sea development may translate to rainfall for the northeast Queensland coast rather than a major cyclone impact. But we need to monitor this closely. If a system does develop closer to the Queensland coast, we could be talking about another tropical cyclone impacting Queensland by late January or early February. It is still too early for specifics. The only certainty is an area of low pressure in the Gulf of Carpentaria bringing good rainfall to the Northern Territory and northwestern Queensland next week. Western Australia has its own developing situation. A tropical low may form within the next 24 hours well offshore from the WA coast, tracking southwest. No threat to the Western Australian coastline, but there's a chance this briefly intensifies to a weak tropical cyclone before weakening again. Similar to systems we've already seen offshore from WA earlier this season, by the 20th of January, we're remonitoring the Kimberley region and potentially the Pilbara for further development. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kochi, after moving through the Gulf of Carpentaria, are forecast to swing into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, then back towards the Northern Territory. There may be a brief window for redevelopment in the Timor Sea northeast of the Kimberley coast. Chances are decreasing though because this system will have substantial land interaction and isn't expected to get properly offshore. But there is still that possibility for a tropical low or brief tropical cyclone associated with Kochi S remnants. For Broome, Port Hedland or Karratha, impacts are very unlikely. Very unlikely at this stage. Let me summarise the key points across Australia, central Queensland. Flooding is easing, but more rainfall continues today. Flash flooding remains possible around Rockhampton and Gladstone. Rivers are dropping, but recovery will take time. Road damage is extensive, northwestern Queensland. A developing threat from this weekend into next week. Potential for renewed heavy rainfall. If you've got livestock, move them to higher ground now. Saturated catchments mean flooding can redevelop quickly with even moderate rainfall. Southeast Queensland, severe thunderstorm potential this weekend, heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail possible. Stay alert to Bureau of Meteorology warnings, New South Wales coast. A developing coastal low brings potential for significant rainfall Friday through Sunday, 200 to 300 millimetres possible in isolated locations. Exact placement uncertain. Monitor forecasts closely. Coral Sea and Gulf of Carpentaria. Multiple tropical systems to watch over the next 10 days. The Gulf low is more certain. Coral Sea development is possible, but timing and location remain unclear. Western Australia, offshore tropical activity poses no immediate threat. Monitor Kimberley region around the 20th for potential development. For those in flood-affected areas, the standard advice applies. If it has flooded, forget it. Never drive through floodwater. Check road closures before travelling. Roads may look passable, but can be structurally damaged underneath. Allow extra time for travel. Have emergency supplies ready, including drinking water, non-perishable food, medications, and a battery-powered radio. For those in the path of potential severe thunderstorms this weekend in southeast Queensland, secure loose items around your property. Bring outdoor furniture inside. Check your gutters are clear. Have torches and batteries ready in case of power outages. Stay indoors during severe weather. Avoid using landline phones during lightning. For New South Wales residents watching the coastal low development, keep an eye on stream levels if you're near waterways. Be prepared for potential flash flooding in urban areas. Clean out drains around your property. Know your evacuation routes if you're in a flood-prone area. This is a complex weather pattern across eastern Australia. Multiple systems at different stages of development. The key is staying informed and being prepared. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website regularly. Sign up for emergency alerts from your state emergency service. The next few days will clarify where the heaviest impacts will fall. For now, preparation costs nothing but time. Leaving it until the last minute costs everything. That is the detailed weather situation across Australia. This pattern is active, it's evolving, and it requires your attention. Not panic, but attention. You've dealt with weather events before. Many of you remember the 1974 Brisbane floods, the 2011 Queensland floods, the cyclone Yasi. This isn't at those levels, but it is significant enough to take seriously. Stay informed, stay prepared, and